So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to YouTube. In today's episode, we are going to talk about President Traore. Now, if you do not know, President Traore is a young revolutionary leader in Burkina Faso. So, he is the current president of Burkina Faso, and he is right now the most targeted leader in Africa. He's the most targeted leader in Africa, having survived 19 different assassination attempts and, of course, coup attempts. Now, one thing you must understand is that the grip of the West on Africa is exceedingly strong. When you talk about independence in Africa, it is just a mirage. It is just in our imaginations. Neo-colonialism is far worse than colonialism, because in colonialism you have these guys, they are brazenly right in front of us, building infrastructure and, of course, teaching our people, and they are absolutely part of our society. But in neo-colonialism, they are not here. Instead, they are using leaders who are, quote unquote, our presidents, who, in my opinion, are nothing more than advanced warrant chiefs. In those days, they had warrant chiefs where they will pick someone from your tribe and have the person govern you, where it was, determined that they couldn't control your king, or where your king wasn't loyal. They banish the king, replace him with warrant chiefs, and then the warrant chiefs serve the interest of the white men or the interest of the colonial masters. And that is exactly what is consistently going on right now in Africa, where all our presidents, you see the presidents, for instance, you see ECOWAS, you see the African Union, you see all of these bodies who are supposed to be heavily interested in the affairs of Africa. You see them look the other way. You see them not show any bit of interest. But the moment the interest of the West is threatened, they quickly move in and they begin to act. For instance, when there was a coup in Niger Republic and President Bazoum was removed from office, something happened. You could see how quickly ECOWAS moved in to sanction Niger Republic. And you can see how ECOWAS is moving in to sanction Niger, to sanction Mali, to sanction Burkina Faso. All of these three nations who have come together, you could see how ECOWAS is moving to sanction them. But when you hear of terror attacks in these areas, when you hear of terror attacks, when you hear of, very, very unfortunate things going on in these areas, you don't see ECOWAS acting in the same light. You don't see ECOWAS acting in the interest of the people. And you don't see these African bodies acting in the interest of our people. So right now, there is a leader. He has done exceedingly well. The most recent thing he has done in Burkina Faso is that he has made, I just read that he has made education free at all levels in Burkina Faso. He has paid off all the debt. Oil has just been discovered by Gazprom, which is a Russian oil company. Oil has just been discovered, and all of these resources are being utilized for the good of the Burkinabes. This is the kind of leader that every single nation will dream to have. But guess what? This is the leader that the West is doing everything within their power to eliminate. Why? Because his presence there threatens the interests of the West. And one thing I like to tell you is that when you look across Africa, there are very few leaders that are not pandering to the whims of the West. For instance, you have Yoweri Museveni, you had Muammar Gaddafi in his era, you had Robert Mugabe in his era, and now you have President Traore. And then Thomas Sankara tried, but then the same way that, they are trying to eliminate Traore is the same way they eliminated Sankara in 1987. So you can see that the West are not interested in the growth of Africa. And it's very simple. The reason why it's that way is because the entire world, the entire prosperity of the whole world that you can see is built on the suffering of Africa. They want a situation where they want to be able to continue to have access to cheap raw materials without having to pay the real price for them. They mine the diamonds in Namibia. They mine diamonds in South Africa. They mine gold in in Ghana. And then where do they go to determine the prices? For the price of gold, they go to the London Stock Exchange to determine the price. They go to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange to determine the price of gold that is mined in Africa. So we own the resources. The resources is on our land, but we don't determine the prices. And where leaders rise to counter these things, they quickly take those leaders out. Same way they took out Patrice Lumumba. I think that was in 1971 or 1961. I'm not exactly sure the year, but that's how they took out Patrice Lumumba. So one thing you must understand is that African leaders in no way, shape, or form, they don't protect their own. And there is something I have equally come to observe. In this world, there are different races. You have the Caucasian guys, you have the Hispanics, you have the Asians, you have the Arabs, and then you have Africans. You have all of these races combined. One thing that you observe is that every single one of these races are combining together. They are basically uniting themselves to fight for their common interests. The Asians come together to defend Asian interests. The Westerners, the Caucasians, all these guys. But now, guess what they have done? All of them, they have somehow found a way to unite themselves, and they all consider themselves white men. Now all of them are quote unquote white men. And who are the people at the bottom of the food chain? It is Africans. And guess who they consistently try to divide? It is Africans that are consistently being divided in this whole thing. You see Africans operating at very, very medieval mentality of tribe. You see here, for instance, here in Nigeria, you have Igbo House, I think around 130 different ethnic groups in this country, and everybody wants to act on the basis of their tribe. How far can you get if all you align with is your tribesman? How far can you really get? If your entire alliance is built around your tribe alone, if your entire identity and your entire sense of, brotherhood is only built with your tribesmen, how far can you get? You see a Yoruba man, he's just aligning with Yoruba people, and then there are different tribes in Africa, and then one of the massive massacres we had in Rwanda, which was the Hutus versus the Tutsis, the very wild massacre in 1994. Guess what? These are African brothers taking out African brothers. So instead of us to unite on the basis of the common interest that we are at the bottom of the food chain, we don't have a single seat on the table. At G7, there is no African country represented. At G20, South Africa manages to come in. And the reason South Africa is managing to come is that the economy of South Africa is held together by Westerners. Those guys, they're not Africans. You have Elon Musk and all of those guys, because if you get there are still areas where they don't allow African men to come to, because this is African skin. And so we are far too divided for a people that want freedom. We are far too divided for that. If it is freedom we want, if we want to have a seat on the table, we should be coming together. And one of the great pioneers of a united Africa, Kwame Nkrumah, for every single time there's a leader that rises to unite Africa, that leader is quickly taken out. Muammar Gaddafi in 2011 was taken out. And prior to that, the life that the Libyans had was one to envy. The Libyans had the best of life you could imagine. If you finished university and you wanted to go and study anywhere abroad, Libya paid for it. If you wanted to start a family, you didn't have money, Libya gave you the money for it. That's the kind of environment. They didn't pay for fuel. They didn't pay for a whole lot of things. But then guess what? The West came to them and told them they want to give them democracy, that this man has been on seat for too long, that he's oppressing the people. He's, they just quickly throw the word. They put the tag dictator on you, and they use their media to control the narrative. Today, look at Libya. And when Muammar Gaddafi was about to go down, he made something clear. He said that if he goes, that there is going to be a never-ending run of insurgency and terrorism. And look at Africa today. Every single country along the Sahel region, even down in Nigeria here, we all have to now deal with terrorism. Massive terrorism. Every day new terror groups are springing up. And all this, the forceps origo, is the fall of Muammar Gaddafi. And then, now guess what? African leaders could not even come together to defend their own. What was the African Union doing in 2011? For NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, headed by America, to come in and bomb Africa and take out Gaddafi. And guess who was in the office? Barack Obama, an African man. So what was the African Union doing at that time? What were African leaders doing? But guess what? That is the mentality of people that don't even know themselves. So, see, the problem is, if you say you want to have an African bank, let's say we all want to unite and have the African Central Bank, just like Europe, and then the entire countries in Africa, all 54 nations, have one single currency. And there are no borders within Africa. And mind you, when you look at the trade between the Americas, around 60%. Trade between Asia, maybe 70%. Trade within Europe, around 65%. But trade within Africa is 15%. Why? Because we have very, very serious borders. Why do we have all these borders in Africa? Why do we have all of these things? And the interesting thing is that the moment an African leader begins to make the kind of statement that I am making now, he becomes a threat, he becomes a target for elimination, and that is why they are trying to take out, Ibrahim Traore. The guys at the Sahel have come together and they have now floated an $800 million bank. Their own bank. They want to unite their resources and pool their currencies together to be able to have a strong economic entity. That opens up routes for trade. So that is exactly what we should be doing, and how we're able to achieve these things in such a short time. But when I was in secondary school, we were hearing that very soon ECOWAS will have one single currency. And we're hearing that, oh, by 2009, we're going to have a common currency and it will be called the echo. Where is that currency today? This is 2025. So, but when the Europeans come together, they simply come together and have the euro, and you have countries like Cyprus and Greece and all of these small countries all tied to that currency. So when they have a problem, one country quickly bails them out. But guess what? How do you have a country like Burundi and Djibouti and all of these countries in Africa, and they have very, very terrible standards of living, when there is a massive resource base in Africa that can cater for everybody? So this is exactly why the West does not want Africa to stand. Because if Africa stands, they will have to pay the fair price of what our resources are worth. And then we'll be able to have factories, we'll be able to determine our own economic destiny, and they won't be able to come here and take not just material, they take human resources. These days, our people use their own money, millions of naira, thousands of dollars, thousands of pounds, to work their way to go and live in Europe, to go and live in America, and work in America and give their talent for America. And what now happens? They want their children to be born in America. I was just talking to a friend just before I started shooting this video, and she was saying, that she wants her children, to come over to Canada and be Canadian trust fund babies. Why can't we have African trust fund babies? And the reason African leaders cannot even do the right thing is because they are afraid. If you do the right thing, you quickly become a target and you are eliminated. But the question is, if every single one of them united together, how many people can they take out? How many people can they take out? Have a single currency for Africa, a single army, a single immigration, everything, and we have one passport, an African passport. Now, tell me, if we have an African passport, can you now say that certain African countries cannot go to certain places again? No. And one thing that you don't even understand is that if Africa is able to emerge and to have a seat at the table, it helps the entire world. If you are in China, you can come here and own a business. You can come here and do business. We can equally come over to you. It benefits every single one of us. So I'm honestly wishing Ibrahim Traore well. And of course, I believe that he's going to do, he has been doing a fantastic job. And it is my prayer that he's alive and he's kept alive. And the painful thing is that they consistently use those who are closest to you. This one, I think it said it was done by, I think it was chief of staff or something. Paid $41 million. If these guys are giving you $41 million, what is dollars? Printed paper in exchange for real resources that is used in manufacturing. If these guys are giving you $41 million to help eliminate your president, the last one, it was $5 million. This time around, we've seen 41. If you sell your brother, the person who buys your brother from you is not even going to trust you. $41 million, and your mind is not telling you that what these guys are going to take away is far more than $41 million to eliminate your leader. So at this point, I mean, it's really heartbreaking for me to see that Africa is down and to see that, things are like this. We've lost our identity. We've lost a whole lot as a continent. Years down the line since, they claim that colonialism has ended, but it's far worse. It is far worse. And this generation is not acting like they are prepared to liberate themselves. You see every African leader running to do the bidding of France, running to do the bidding of Britain, running to do the bidding of America, just running to serve the interest of everyone except their own. An American president is sitting on the seat as Donald Trump, and he's saying America first. Where are the leaders that are going to put Africa first? Where are the leaders that are going to put their individual interests aside and serve Africa and serve their nation? Where are those leaders? If those leaders spring up, they quickly take them out, and then the rest are afraid. But if you take one out and the rest keep emerging and everybody, how many people can you take out? Why wasn't the African Union able to stop NATO intervention? The African Union tried to intervene and they didn't even answer them. You got on their own continent where they claim to be presidents and leaders. They allow them to come and take out someone as big as Gaddafi, and quite frankly, it's a very sad situation. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of my video. Honestly, I'm sincerely hoping that things turn out well for us here in Africa. Please follow this channel, subscribe to the channel, give this video a like. Thank you very much, everyone, for the last support you showed in the previous video. The subscriptions are coming up, and I'm sincerely hoping that the subscriptions will continue to rise. Please like the video, subscribe, share with your friends, and I'll be more than happy to see you on the next one. And of course, I wish President Traore well, and I wish every well-meaning African leader who are doing a very good job I sincerely wish them well. They are going to have their flaws, they are going to have their shortcomings, but as long as they are serving the interests of the people of Africa, I am very, very more than happy. And of course, big shout out to the president of Namibia as well, who has, taken a very, very huge step to protect Namibian resources and, of course, give an equal playing field as well. So big shout out to her. I don't even know her name. I might maybe have to Google that, but they have a woman president in Namibia. So big shout out to her as well. And big shout out to every African leader striving to give their people a good life. And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.